Hey everyone, welcome to the Sustain the Range podcast. I'm Lauren, your host, and this podcast is a personal exploration of my experiences in everything ranching. From beef operations to training horses to sustainable farming and regenerative practices, we'll cover it all. Each episode features enlightening conversations with guests who bring their unique perspectives and expertise. Whether they're seasoned ranchers or first-generation farmers, we all share a common bond and deep appreciation for the land and the livestock we raise. Tune in each week for engaging discussions, inspiring stories, and practical insights from the ranching community, and let's embark on this incredible journey together. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sustain the Range podcast. So I am bringing you a solo episode this week. I just figured I'd do a little life update about how things are going here on the ranch, some different life changes, things I've been experiencing in the last couple of months. And then we are going to talk about something that I really wanted to share here, just because it's a pretty big topic in the agricultural industry right now, in terms of factory farming and a bill that is going to be on a ballot in Sonoma County and what that could mean for agriculture as a whole and what it could mean for down the road. And it's meant to just be a very quick overview of what's going on, what it actually is, and why it matters, not just for farmers and ranchers, but why it matters to every single person that consumes food, to be honest. So I thought that I would just do a little bit of a life update first, and then we can get into the factory farming. And also another reason why I wanted to touch on it is because I know in one of my episodes I had mentioned factory farms, and I just thought that it would be a good topic to bring up and to help clarify a couple of things. So anyways, here goes. So I figured that I would kind of do a little bit of some life updates here on the ranch, and I had been going back and forth about what I was going to talk about this week and just sharing different feelings and thoughts and stuff that I've been coming across, and I kind of had a little bit of a negative thought, like, don't even really talk about that. Nobody really cares. But then I stopped myself and I said, no, I can't be the only one feeling this way, whether you're on a ranch or whether you're just coming across new life chapters. And I have definitely been experiencing a lot of new things, with starting a new job, moving to a new place, being on a different operation here at this ranch, meeting different people, and just experiencing a lot of different, feelings and emotions. And I just said, what the heck, I obviously can't be the only one who's ever felt this way. So I just wanted to kind of touch on some of these topics. So things have been going good here at the ranch, really, really good. I'm learning a lot. It's a bigger operation than the ranch that I was at in Montana. And it's been really cool. I've been doing a lot of different farming, and also, taking care and helping out with the livestock side of things. So with the horses and the cow herd. So it's been really fun. I've been really enjoying learning a lot about stockmanship and how to properly move cattle on horseback. So that was something that I really, really am trying to learn more about and get better at. It's definitely an art form, and the people that I'm working with are really, really good at it, and I've just have appreciated the times that we have been out and moving the cows, that I have been able to kind of watch how they do things and learn from them and have them help me. And it is pretty cool and amazing, so for people who don't, who don't work on a ranch or anything, when you kind of see, videos of people moving cows or, pictures of them moving cows, and it is so much more than that. And it takes a lot of skill, and it's definitely an art form to be able to get a cow to where you want to go, to understand, to try to help them understand in a way. They're not going to obviously fully understand, but you kind of get my gist. When you're on, whether you're on the ground or whether you're on horseback, and it's definitely an art form. And I just am so excited to continue down this road of getting better at stockmanship. And it's pretty cool to see different operations do things differently. So one operation can move cows in a completely different way, and there really is no right or wrong. Obviously, the wrong would be to be treating that animal in a bad way. And I won't go down that path about, what that could mean, or, because every single operation has different ways of doing things. But there's low stress stockmanship, and then, there's things like the traditional cowboy way of doing things. And I don't want to get into that, what's bad or good or right or wrong today. But what I've experienced here is really an art form and a skillful way of moving cows, and in a low stress way, and allowing that cow to make decisions while also asserting yourself and asserting your horse and putting pressure on the cow at certain times, and then backing off and knowing what that balance is and knowing what that line is takes a lot of time. I am absolutely still in the learning phase, and I always want to be, I want to continue down this path of really getting good at that, and knowing, when to push and when to not, and knowing when to assert pressure and then when to back off. And what's been really cool this last couple of weeks is that we've moved cows a little bit, and we've been working with pairs and also working with yearlings. And the yearlings are really, really fun because they're so different from moving pairs, which a pair is a cow and who has a calf. And the difference of, moving the yearlings, where they're kind of almost this like little fish herd, and they move a lot quicker. And if you make a mistake, or if they kind of go off in a different direction, sometimes it's a little bit easier to kind of get them to come around if you can have them all kind of stick together. Obviously that it doesn't happen all the time, but that kind of happened one day this past week, and some of them got in going the wrong direction, and then we were all able to quickly gather them up and then get them in the right direction, where when you're moving cow-calf pairs, it can take a lot longer, and the calves tend to bunch up, and it definitely takes a lot longer, and it's definitely a longer process. But so moving the yearlings has been a lot of fun. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of different farming, been learning about doing different forms of irrigation, flood irrigation, and different things like that. So it's been really cool. Some of the things that I've been, feeling and coming across is just like continuing to settle into a new place. And I know I talked about this on a couple of episodes in, I think maybe last month, but when you're moving to a new place, it can be really hard, and meeting new people, which I always enjoy, but sometimes it takes a while to make friends, and you can feel a little bit lonely. And especially as we get older, I think it can be a lot harder to make friends. And I've also been finding myself falling into the trap of like feeling a little bit lonely that I don't have friends here, because I had a great group in Montana, and definitely missing the people there. But I've also, and I listened to a Mel Robbins podcast on this recently, and it kind of really hit me that, we also can't just say that it's because we're older that it's harder to make friends because everybody already has their set friend group and that's how it is and things like that. We also have to put ourselves out there. And I know that for me, I can definitely, and I'm definitely guilty of not putting myself out there as much. But I also do want to say, it can be hard at times, and sometimes it might take a little bit longer. And I also think that there might be certain situations where maybe there's a certain friend group that might just not be for you. And I say this because I also had heard Jamie Lee Kerma, I think her name is. She was the entrepreneur that started the makeup company, and L'Oreal bought them for I can't remember the exact number, for like $1 billion, I think. But anyway, I've been listening to a lot of her stuff lately, and I really, really like it because she talks a lot about like her journey with self-worth and how she built her business and how she deals with rejection and how having a better relationship with rejection has completely changed her life. And one of the things that really stuck with me when I listened to her, I think it was either a podcast or something that I watched on YouTube, was that, sometimes when we feel like we're being rejected or maybe we don't fit in somewhere, that maybe that is God's protection, and that maybe he's trying to tell us that a certain person or a group of people might not see your value because they're not supposed to, because there's some other person out there who is going to see your value. And I really thought that was a very cool way of looking at it. And I'm not saying to use that excuse all the time and use that as a way to say like, oh, I can't just make friends, or that the other people that don't see my value are bad. No, not at all. That it's just a way to find your people and find the people that are going to see your value. So anyway, I just really liked that, and I've been trying to keep that in mind as somebody who I know that I've shared on here, who has struggled in the past with self-confidence and self-worth, and just reminding yourself every day of your value and of your worth, and that you are worthy. So I'm sharing all of this because when you're going through a lot of different life changes, so whether you started a new job, whether you've moved to a new place, whether you have ended a relationship, whether you're starting a relationship, there's going to be constant things that come up. And I know for me, with starting this new job and being at this new operation, there's a huge learning curve. Not only a learning curve like for me to get better and more experience in ranching and stockmanship and farming in general, but I think a lot of us, and I know I've done this, we tend to beat ourselves up a lot and compare ourselves. I've fallen into the trap of like feeling like I should know everything right away, because if I don't want to look like stupid, or I don't feel confident in my abilities. So I tend to put this enormous amount of pressure of feeling like I should know everything right off the bat, and I would compare myself to people who have been doing this for 20 more years than me, or even have 10 more years experience on me, or even a couple more years experience on me. But every time that we step into something new, especially like when we're learning new skills or at a new place, we just have to remind ourselves that it's not going to be perfect and that we're going to make mistakes. And every single person that has come before us in whatever we're doing, they've all been in that first year of learning or in that first 5 years of learning, and they've made mistakes too. And obviously, as the cliche saying goes, like, making mistakes is where we learn. And I have to continually remind myself that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to mess up, and it will happen. Like, I am going to make a big mistake, and I've already made a couple of mistakes. But we're gonna mess up, and that is okay. So I also think, as I mentioned a little bit before, if you're going through something like a loss, or whether it's a loss of a job, a loss of a relationship, or something else, for me, especially in the last month, when I've had a change in relationship status, and I'll share more about that at another time, I have, again, continually tried to grow in my faith and lean on God. And right now, as I just said, for anybody that's feeling like a loss, or feeling even stuck, or feeling in a place where they used to be happy and something happened and they're not happy right now, or you're just in this new season of feeling like what was behind you was better. And I have been continually reminding myself, and having to really, really remind myself every single day, because I can tend to look what was behind me and say, oh my gosh, the past, that ranch, that relationship, everything behind me was so much better than what I have right now, or what's ahead of me. And that's simply just not true, because I really do believe, and again, I'm continually reminding myself that whatever God has taken away from you, or seemingly takes away, he's going to replace with something better. And we have to remind ourselves of that, because even in the example of the Bible, Lot's wife, and I don't remember the exact scripture right now, but when Lot's wife, when they were leaving their home, God said, don't turn around, don't look at what was behind you. And Lot's wife, she turned around to look at the home she was leaving, and she turned into a pillar of salt. So a metaphor for not only trusting what God has in front of us, even though we can't see it, but trying to remind ourselves to not look back, because God has taken you away from that thing, or has removed that thing from your life, because he has something better. And I'm, still get a little teared up, because, and I'll be honest, like, I don't always believe that every second of the day. Like I said, I have to keep reminding myself that what is ahead of me is better, and that he's going to, anything that he took away, or anything that I feel was a loss, he's going to replace tenfold, because he is good, and he has so much grace, and he loves us so much that he wants what's good for us, and he wants what's best for us. And even in terms of like growth, or getting to a place where we have the ability to thrive, where maybe he took that away because in that old situation we weren't going to turn into the best we could be. We would have second guessed ourselves. The situation wouldn't have allowed for it. Whatever it is, the relationship that you are, or the person that you are with, that you no longer are with anymore, maybe they weren't going to support your growth. Maybe, things were going to happen that God is protecting you from. And, I also have been struggling with this idea even for the last year or two, but a lot more lately in the last 6-7 months, with everything that's gone on, with me, loss of the relationship, and losing my horse, and everything, moving to a new place, things like that. Whenever I've heard people say, God said to me, or I heard God say this, I felt for a while now, there's something wrong with me, because I don't quote unquote hear God. I don't get a feeling like, or I stop and I close my eyes and I'm like, okay, God, speak to me. And then this like voice comes in, or this thought comes in that is like, oh my gosh, yes, that was God. I really haven't felt that or experienced that in a way where I can discern from my own voice and God's voice just yet. And in the last, say 6 months or so, but more so in the last 3 or 4 months, I started doing this thing where I'm writing letters to God. And even when I was going back and forth on whether to take this ranch job as opposed to another one that I was offered, I was really going through a hard time, because I was like, okay, I don't know what God's trying to tell me. I can't hear him. And then I'd see a lot of other people, and I hear a lot of other people say, well, just pray and you'll hear him. Or I'd watch something on YouTube and they were talking about going through a big life decision, and they had this like epiphany where God said to me this. And I just haven't experienced that. In maybe that's my own stubbornness. Maybe I have, and God's just trying to like really get through to me. And I'm too hard-headed or stubborn or second guessing myself. But what I have realized is, so for anybody that kind of has felt that way or whatever, what's helped me is I've been doing this thing where I write a letter to God. So I'll just either sit down on my computer or open up a journal and just start writing. And that has really helped me, quote unquote, hear God. And, I did this with whether or not to take this job. And one day over the winter, I sat down and I was like, okay, God, like, I'm just going to start typing to you, and I'm looking for some answers. Like, just help me figure this out. So I just started typing, and I just, whatever was coming to mind, I randomly was just throwing words on a page. And by the end of it, I started typing like, just take the job in Colorado. It feels more peaceful. So just having that come out on a page, and I've done that a number of different times, and with this past relationship that I had, which again I'll talk about later, but about a month ago, I sat down when I was having, going through some doubts and having a really hard time about whether or not to continue on with the relationship or not. I felt like God was trying to talk to me, but I really was wanting to listen to myself, and I was scared if the relationship was going to end, and I was feeling all the different feelings: sad, hurt, confused, upset, everything. And I just sat down and I typed a letter out to him, and I said, God, whatever you want for me, whether this is right or whether this is wrong, like, I'm giving it to you. And I just typed it out, and it was a longer letter, but I didn't type it out for a couple of weeks because I didn't want to have him intervene, because I wanted what my heart wanted, and I wanted what I wanted. But over several weeks, I just kind of broke down to a point where I was like, I just can't do this on my own, and God, like, I'm just putting this in your hands. So I just typed it all out, and he answered within a few weeks. And so anyway, I just want to share that with anybody that, has maybe felt that way before, that they can't hear God, or that they feel like angry at him because he's not talking to you, or that you can't figure out what he wants for your life or for a decision. That maybe try that. Maybe try writing it out if you haven't already, and seeing if that might help, rather than, just sitting there and meditating. Because I know that my head and my brain goes a million miles a minute, and I have constant thoughts all the time, and it can really be difficult for me to discern whether it's my own thought, whether it's, the enemy's thought, whether it's my insecurities, or whether it's God or not. So that's just been something, writing it out, typing it out has been something that has really helped me. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to share some of those updates with you all, and, that if you are feeling in a place where you are stuck or feeling like you did make a big life decision and it's not everything that you wanted to play out, or you feel like you're kind of in this holding pattern where you thought God was telling you to do something and he put you somewhere, and you're kind of just like, well, what the heck am I here for? This isn't what I thought it would be. Or it's not panning out the way that I had hoped. Or again, a big thing for me has been, why did he put me here? Why did he take all those things away from me? What I had in the past was so good. But just, again, try to remind yourself and keep the faith that he has something better. And we just, rather than doubting that, rather than thinking about the past, just believe it, just trust in it, and make your decision right then and there that I know that God has something better for me, and he's going to show me, and just believe it. So anyway, yeah, that has been kind of what's going on a little bit for me. So we're just going to totally switch topics right now, and bring up the big issue that I really, really feel passionate about and really just want to share about, this whole factory farming thing that's going on in the agriculture industry. So whether you have heard about it or not, I have mentioned a quote unquote factory farm in a couple of past episodes. And the reason why I want to talk about this, like I mentioned in the beginning, was this is a pretty big issue right now, whether or not you're in farming or ranching, and it affects you because of what this could potentially open doors to down the road. So in Sonoma County, and I will also cite everything that I'm reading from, and I just, again, want to mention that this topic right now is just meant to be an overview. I'm not going to go into all of the different topics because this could be like a 3-hour long conversation, but I just wanted to mention this for anybody that isn't aware of what's going on in Sonoma County right now. But it does matter, and it really, really matters to people and anybody that consumes food. So I am going to cite from a couple of different articles that I found, that I thought were just really good summarizations of what's been going on. So this coming November, a Northern California county will become the first in the nation to vote on a factory farm ban. So a similar bill will be on a ballot in a nearby Berkeley county as well. So in nearby Berkeley, excuse me. But it's called Measure J, and basically what this is so this is a petition that has been led by a group called the Coalition to End Factory Farming, who wants to end large-scale concentrated animal feeding operations, which are also known as CAFOs, in Sonoma County. And that is I'm getting some of this from a CBS News article, which again I'll link in the show notes if anybody cares to read a little bit more on it. But it's an initiative that calls for a 3-year phase out of a classification of animal farms and for a large CAFO. So basically, what's a CAFO? A CAFO needs to be defined, because if this group is coming and saying that they want to end factory farming, well, it's a very confusing matter, because what is a factory farm? It's a factory farm is an extremely misleading term. And to define a factory farm, and basically really to define a CAFO, it's really gotten a bad reputation in mainstream media because most people don't really actually understand what a CAFO is, and I didn't either until I really started digging into this. So people really don't understand what that is or what farmers have to do when their operation is considered a CAFO. So I got this from Ag Daily, and farms that are considered a CAFO, which was first formally defined by the federal government in 1976, can be designated as small, medium, or large. A large CAFO is considered to be an AFO. So an AFO is an animal feeding operation. And can be considered an AFO with more than 1,000 animal units, with an animal unit defined as 1,000 pounds of live weight. So if you have 1 million more pounds worth of livestock, you're a large CAFO. However, this can be very confusing because it defines a farm by the size, and I'll get into why that matters in a minute. But basically, a dairy farm can have 700 cows to be considered a CAFO, but a turkey farmer only needs 55,000, or could have 55,000 birds to be considered a CAFO. So going back to an animal feeding operation, why this can be really confusing is because a factory farm, is a frequently used term with really no definition. And the phrase is associated with regulatory terms for animal feeding operations, an AFO, or a concentrated animal feeding operation, a CAFO. So an AFO is really just a farm that is defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And a CFO is an environmental phrase designated by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, to identify an AFO, a farm. That could be a source of surface water contamination, pollutants, things like that. And I'm also getting some of these facts. Again, I'm going to link all of these citations to make sure I give credit where credit's due. But I am getting some of these facts from AmericaOn1.com as well. So anyway, an animal feeding operation is an agriculture operation where animals are kept and raised in confined situations. So I got this directly from the EPA's website. An AFO is a lot or facility other than an aquatic animal production facility where the following conditions are met. Animals have been, are, or will be stabled or confined and fed or maintained for a total of 45 days or more in any 12-month period, and crops, vegetation, forage growth, or post-harvest residues are not sustained in the normal growing season over any portion of the lot or facility. So, although farms considered to be AFOs have guidelines to follow, like not spreading manure close to bodies of water and wells, it's the farmers considered to be running a CFO that are subject to more inspections and a greater number of regulations. So what does this really mean? A CFO isn't really like a code word for a big bad factory farm like we tend to see in mainstream media. And it was interesting because when I went to gather some facts for this episode, I typed in to Google, what is a factory farm? And the first 10 articles were, and I think about 3 to 5 of them were from like animal activist groups talking about how bad factory farms are, but none of them, as I was reading through the articles, were really defining what a factory farm is, other than, animals are being in a confined space. So for it to be considered a CFO, it's just simply like a sizing guideline that was created by the EPA. So the Ag Daily gave a pretty good example of kind of what the EPA has done to define this guideline. So an example was like, you can think about if you played high school sports. So did you play soccer or football in Class A? That means if you went to a school with a larger enrollment than someone who played soccer in Class D. But just as we never look at Class A as being worse than Class D, we shouldn't consider CAFOs to be something worse than their non-CAFO counterparts. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But basically, it's just a sizing guideline. But again, it depends on the type of animals that you have. Back to my example that, a farm could be considered a large-scale CFO because they have 700 or more cows because of the sizing guidelines and the weight. But a turkey farmer is only considered a large-scale CFO if they have 55,000 birds or more. So why is this extremely confusing, and why is this a dilemma? Basically because what this group in this thing to be, this bill to be voted on, is the idea that just taking away large factory farms or large CAFOs is going to be the answer. And there is another dilemma here, because if we do take away from large-scale farming operations, if we take away all of the large-scale farming operations, we are going to not be able to provide enough food to feed the population. And I know I've been very open and very clear about what I support in terms of, supporting your local farmer rancher, or supporting farmers and ranchers in general, obviously. I don't support animals living in super confined spaces where they're not being, or the health and the welfare of the animals are living in terrible conditions, really poor conditions. However, I've definitely seen a lot of things out there in the media where they define it as a factory farm that is a really poor condition, and then I've seen another couple of farms, and I've even driven by a few that is considered a factory farm because of the number of, after looking up the farm and everything, they were considered a CAFO, but the animals were living in beautiful outdoor conditions. So again, going back to this term factory farming, it's really become almost a scare tactic. And I am supportive of ranchers and farms that treat their animals well, that the animals aren't living in poor conditions or poor living conditions, or sitting in their own waste, things like that. So this, it can definitely be a really tricky subject, because again, if we are to say that we're going to outlaw all large farming operations, which is what this activist group is trying to do, we won't be able to feed enough food for the population, and we will be paying more and more and more for our food. So kind of getting back to some of these some of the good points that all of these articles talked about, and one stat that I found was that the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, says that the CAFOs can provide a low-cost source of meat, milk, and eggs due to the efficient feeding and housing of animals, increased facility size, and animal specialization. CAFOs are also known to improve local economies and increase employment opportunities. And as animal housing has been modernized with climate-controlled systems and advanced health and welfare monitoring, as well as limited amount of land being available for agriculture in the U.S., many see CFOs as a value path forward in animal production and care. So more about what this ballot is and what this Measure J is, and this I'm going to be reading more from AmericaUnwon.com, which again I'll cite. What is this Measure J? So Measure J is going to be on the November ballot. So this activist group, the Coalition to End Factory Farming, collected enough signatures to get Measure J on the November ballot in Sonoma County. So Danya Ghirardelli, who is the executive director of the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, says it's really dangerous for our county. We have this is a quote, we have multi-generational family farms that are under direct threat and will go out of business. If there is a farm that is not directly affected, we will all know they will be indirectly affected, and a lot of farms will go out of business because we all need each other to survive. So she also said that these activists from this Coalition to End Factory Farming collected these signatures deceptively, that the activists used upsetting photos of dead animals to kind of have that shock factor and manipulate signatures. And I guess they had found out, and so she says this is direct quote, we found out that people who signed didn't realize what they were signing. They were told this was factory farms when this is actually a hit on Sonoma County animal agriculture. So she believes that Sonoma County residents overwhelmingly appreciate their local farms and recognize that the farmers are doing things right. And regardless, they are now forced to fight for their way of life or face extinction in November. And here's another direct quote that she has. To vilify farms based on the number of animals they have is criminal. It's not indicative of the quality of farms here, but it's really hard to battle people who just don't believe in it. In their eyes, it will never be good enough because their end goal is for us to be gone. There was I wanted to share this part because, again, and I'm taking this from America on One, there's a quote here on a headline that says their goal is to end animal agriculture. The Tresh family has been farming in Sonoma County since 1905. They run 750 cows on 2,000 certified organic acres and were the second dairy in the western U.S. to receive an organic certification. If Measure J passes, the farm will be shut down. Quote, this is not my parents' first fight to protect their livelihood, says daughter Lindsay O'Hara, a sixth-generation dairy farmer. My parents have worked tirelessly for my whole life and most of their own, taking care of this ranch and their animals. Every year they plant countless trees, protect areas that are sensitive to erosion, and rotationally graze the herds. In 1995, my parents won the Sierra Club Environmentalist of the Year award. They care deeply for this land and their animals, and the same can be said for all of our neighbors. Miss O'Hara says Measure J is only a small step towards the activists' goal of ending animal agriculture and would set a dangerous precedent for the rest of California and the country. So, what does this all mean? These extremist groups are getting louder and louder, and this Coalition to End Factory Farming is a front group for the Direct Action Everywhere, DXE, and they're an infamous organization that is based in Berkeley, California, and they openly state that their goal is to end all animal agriculture by 2040. So what does this group believe in? That we should not be eating anything that comes from an animal. And they don't agree with animal agriculture, the use of animals for food or other resources. So they want to end the goal of animal agriculture in general. So no meat, no eggs, nothing with animals at all should be farmed, and we should just leave it all be. And we should only be eating maybe plants and bugs. I'm really not sure what they believe. But obviously they are very open that that their main goal is to not just end factory farming. Their end goal is to end animal agriculture as a whole. So why, and you can, again, I'm not going to go down, there's a number of different resources that you can read about this animal activist groups and their role and other things that they've been openly involved with, and some, sketchy stuff that they have been involved with. Like, there was a case where this group was reported 3 days after trespassing on an incident on a local poultry farm, where an incident of avian flu had spread 3 days later after they had visited this farm. So anyways, I won't go into any of that, but if you want to look into more about this group, feel free. They're called Direct Action Everywhere. But anyways, getting back to why this all matters is because these animal extremist groups, they don't, again, have the goal of really ending, it looks on the surface like they care about the animals, and they show these photos of dead animals living in these terrible conditions to get signatures. But to me, it's interesting because if they're saying that they are wanting to end factory farms because of animal welfare, and they don't want to see animals die, and they don't, they want to see these animals out of poor living conditions, which, yes, agreed. You don't want to see animals living in poor living conditions. However, when you're trying to attack family farms that are doing things right, and again, just under this entire umbrella of what is really a CAFO, and that could mean so many different things, like that example that I gave of the dairy farmer and all of the environmental things that they are doing and grazing their cows properly on their land. That is helping the environment. And as I continually talk about, how we can use livestock and to better the health of the environment like they used to, like they were made to do, like God intended, where, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, bison roamed the land, and they are part of the environment, and I saw this, I shared like this, it was a little meme or something that I shared on my Instagram a couple of days ago, but it says, imagine thinking that cows are bad for the planet, or cows eating grass are bad for the planet. That's like saying fish are bad for the ocean. Cows are the planet. These animal activist groups, I really don't think, at the end of the day, really care about the animals in general, because you've heard stories, and even just like that little example that I gave of, it seems like some of these crazy groups will go in and burn up buildings, or when you go and you light fire to a barn or something, how are you really caring for those animals when you're actually killing them? You're just trying to make a point. Anyway, my point being that if we really start looking into some of these groups that are heading up these Measure J type of things, we've really got to look into and really got to ask ourselves, what is their end goal? And they openly state here that their end goal is to end animal agriculture. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more behind it. Again, I am not going to go into all of the details here, because it would just take too much time, and I just don't really want to go down this rabbit hole here. And what could this mean? So if this Measure J passes, and they're going to say that they're going to end all animal agriculture, they're going to start, this is a first step. And I did read something on, oh yes, okay, quote, "We think that starting at the local level, in a place where there is a high amount of public opinion against factory farming, is a good way to start the ball rolling." Activist Louis Bernier, who identifies himself as a factory farm investigator, told CBS News. He explains that if his group is successful in Sonoma, other communities will follow. And again, this just goes into which farms would be affected. How do you define a factory farm? And again, there really isn't any very clear definition of what this actually means. So it's very subjective. This term is used as a scare tactic. What this could mean for the future of animals, or I'm sorry, for the future, well, yes, for the future of animals, but what this could mean for the future of farms could be catastrophic. And again, going back to that example of the dairy farmer and all of the good that her family has been doing over generations on that family farm, if this bill goes through, that her family's farm could be shut down. So anyway, I wanted to bring up that topic, and sorry, that was kind of all over the place. As I was, getting different quotes and different facts from different articles, but there's a lot of attack on farmers and ranchers and cows and, livestock in general, right now, and has been going on. And it is really scary because farmers and ranchers, again, I believe are the ones that actually care the most about the land and the animals. And you're always going to get those bad eggs, sure. But this is their livelihood. This, when we're out caring for the cows, when we're out caring for the horses, we want to do what's good and right for both the animals and the land itself. Not only is it because we love it, and again, I haven't been in this long, but I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And to be a steward of the land and to be able to be a part of providing food for a community and for people is something that is so near and dear to my heart. And it's your livelihood. In the United States, 98% of all farms are family owned. And those family farms make up 88% of the production. Those are pretty big percentages. So anyway, and for me, I've got bitten by this agricultural bug, I guess if you want to call it. And again, I can't imagine myself doing anything else. And from what I have seen so far is that nobody cares about their land or the animals as much as the farmer and ranchers do. And it just really bothers me so much when things like this come up, or you see these activist groups trying to push through something that honestly I don't even really think that they want to understand. I think that when these extremist groups like this are wanting to get something passed, they'll go to any extent to get it passed without actually trying to understand, because it doesn't matter what these farmers or ranchers are doing, or it doesn't matter to them what these generational farms have done for the land or the amount of food that they have provided for their communities and for the nation in general. We are just seeing so much attack on agriculture, and cows are killing the planet, and it's just simply not true. I will stop my rambling now, but I really just wanted to bring that topic up for people who weren't aware of it, because again, as I mentioned, even if you're not a farmer or if you're not a rancher, if this goes through and if this passes, this could mean bigger things coming down the road. And again, the goal of ending all farms and ranches and ending all animal agriculture as a whole, I mean, what would our world look like if there were no farms, if there were no ranches in the United States? That would be a world that I know in a country that I would not want to live in. And our country was built on farms and ranches, and our ancestors and our generations were built by farmers and ranchers. This country that is the backbone of America, and to live in a world where there wasn't your local farm or your local ranch, and to be driving down the road or through states and not seeing a single farm or ranch, I mean, I can't even imagine what that would look like, and I don't want to. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that topic up. And again, I will cite all of these articles, and feel free to keep doing your research. Again, I will mention this was not meant to be an in-depth conversation about this. I just wanted to bring up certain topics and a few different articles to just, for those who weren't aware of what's going on, and for what this could mean for the future. So anyways, I hope you all have a wonderful day. I know that was a very interesting episode with going from life updates and God and faith to factory farming and CAFOs, but just wanted to share all of it. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed it. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to message me. I always love to hear from you guys. And if there's anything that you want me to cover, or if there's any critiques that you have too, or if there's something that I said that wasn't clear, or that you wanted to get more, clarification on, please let me know. So anyways, have a wonderful day. You can always find me mostly on Instagram, LAUREN_PIDGE. That is my Instagram handle. And anyways, thanks for listening, and hope you all have a great rest of your week.